recording.
I'm hitting the go live button. And we are live.
All right.
What do I need? I guess that's all I need. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we have another very special episode. We have the 1989 movie The Abyss. Nathan, do you have a history with The Abyss?
Yes, I saw the first hour and a half of this movie in a theater, and then we lost power. Saw the second part of this movie about a year later on
Cable.
video store. No, I rented it from the video.
Okay.
I wanted to see it, but they lost power. Something happened at the theater, and it was in town, so they gave us our money back, or gave me my money back, and then it was like they just whatever their issue was, like the Abyss was out of run at that theater, so I never got to finish it up. So I'd finish it up at home. So I've seen half of this in the theater and half of it on a VHS cassette.
I attempted to buy the new special edition. It was supposed to come out this week, and I know, like, press got it, but I didn't. So,
Verhoeven Effect credentials didn't rush us a copy.
No. Yeah, our Amazon influence did nothing. Although weirdly, it's like the one I ordered it for like $24, and now the price is like $51. Like, wait, what happened? So, and then no information on when it's shipping. It's just it's like when it's ready, we'll send it to you. It's like, okay.
I had to get a bunch of while we were waiting to podcast. I had to Amazon basically blew all my orders this week. So I had to get like refunds on because I'm buying like stuff for the house now.
Yeah.
From Amazon, because you go out to the stores and it's like they don't like have Windex 2 weeks in a row or something. So I'm just kind of like, wow, whatever. This is all dying. Amazon, well, I guess not. So, it's like, we're sorry, it's running late. Just wait and we'll ship it to you. And then like 4 days later, it's like, well, I'm canceling these orders because I need Windex and happy, and vitamin D pills, whatever else I'm ordering off of there. So.
I had one order. All the others have already been. I ordered alligator clips, and that one got delayed 2 days for no reason. It's like
I don't even care if it's delayed. Usually, I'm like, yeah, no. I'll click like the lowest bracket shipping, like whatever. I don't need this tomorrow. It's these are sundries.
Yeah.
And it seems like every time I do that, it's like, it's just lost in translation. But if I go and if I chain the people to the oars, like, no, I need marshmallows tomorrow, and I don't care who dies. They always show up.
Yeah.
So I guess it just pays to be a bastard. Because I used to get like credits to buy movies and stuff. They give you like a $2. Oh, if there's no rush shipping, it's like, yeah, it's not a rush. I can plan ahead. But apparently someone can't because my truck always flips over and catches on as my screws on it or whatever I need.
Well, I had that. What was it? Oh no, I can't remember. Let's do it. The fuck did I order? Well, I gave you a Christmas present, and they're like, "Nah, it showed up 10 days ago." I'm like, "Nah, it didn't." So I was like, "All right, send a new one out," and they basically both came the same day.
Yeah, I got two of them. I had to send one back to you. No, I had to take it to. I think I took it to an Amazon.
Yeah, UPS store, and you sent it back to Amazon. Oh no, like there's this new thing because I always just pick 2-day free shipping or whatever because that's what it standardizes to, But now there's this new one where it's like if you order it, like it'll standardize it like next day overnight delivery. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. I don't need it on the doorstep at 4 a.m., dude. So it's okay. It's okay.
That strap and that scope I showed you.
Yeah.
I ordered that like Tuesday night, Wednesday. Ding dong. It's like, what? Hey, you're ready for action. It's like, but I can't get like paper towels. Okay.
Well, I think with that stuff, I think that's being serviced by like Uber drivers.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they can get people to it's independent contractors. So we can get them to get up at 3 a.m. to deliver packages to people.
Oh, I feel even worse about it. I guess everyone's treated like garbage, whether they work at a brick and mortar or Amazon. Well, here they have the weird. I was asking the guy because they drive these weird trucks now. They're like they're Amazon branded,
Yeah.
and I guess they're made by that company that makes the Reven trucks, the electric trucks.
Okay.
But these things are weird because they look like they're French, first of all, because they have like the round headlights, and whenever they pull over, the headlights like flash like inner, but they're surrounding the actual headlights. So the turn signals are the surrounds for the headlights. And then the guy gets up and goes in the back, and you hear something there. So there's like going into drawers and just handing him stuff through the back. And he's just walking it out to you, and it's like that's quite a contraption there. It's like, yeah, those are the new electric ones. We're going to see how they do this summer. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so you'll be driving your, car pretty soon. He's like, yeah, any day now. It's like, okay. I mean, it looks like a cool idea, but I guess they break down all the time. So
Yeah.
That's everything.
Yeah, you'll either work out the kinks or it'll be determined a failure. So whatever.
I'm just glad the UPS guys got air conditioning this contract, which was something that like I never thought. I just took it for granted that they had air conditioning in their trucks, and like they do not. They never did.
Well, they don't have close. That the one door is like always open, isn't it?
Well, I guess the newer ones, it's not like that anymore.
Okay.
Because for safety reasons, like as soon as they put it in gear, it rolls shut. So if they get hit or something, they don't get crushed by packages or thrown out of the car. They have new UPS trucks. They look like the old UPS trucks, but if you get close to them, they're like different. But yeah, those never had AC. It's like, oh wow. Which I don't know. That looks like such a vigorous job anyway.
Yeah.
Because our UPS guys all look like they're like Austrian mountain climbers in their spare time, the men and the women. They're like, here's your package. It's this huge box. It's like, well, just set that down. I got to get a dolly. Okay. And they set it down, and I'm like getting a winch to pull it up. It's like, damn, lady. All right.
So yeah, I didn't get the special edition. So I think I just watched the theatrical version. I'm not sure which version mine was 2 hours and 20 minutes. You know what?
This was mine.
Okay. I have seen the special edition. I'm not sure if it's called a director's edition where it has like the extra long ending. I've seen that before.
So the long tsunami?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they really beat you over the head with like nuclear weapons are bad. It's like, well, yeah. Okay.
That's not true. No one's arguing about that.
But yeah, this new edition, it's supposed to be extra long. And again, I've heard rumor that like it completely changed the context of it, and I just never believe that. I will watch this one and report back, but director's editions and extra extended editions, they always provide more context. They're never better movies.
No. I've never seen something where I don't, it's like, oh, I got a lot out of it, except for Star Trek the Motion Picture special edition. It's like, oh, we get another 24 minutes of flying through V'ger. This movie means a lot to me. I can prepare a whole meal just for part of the movie, and it's like, oh, well, it's time to eat.
But this movie is kind of like a bit long-winded. There's a lot of cool stuff to it, but it's too long even at its like swiftest cut. So like, you telling me like the near 3-hour version is superior? I'm very doubtful of that.
I think if you're a fan of this movie, maybe it might have made some of your dreams.
I mean, it depends what they did. If they did some like outrageous like, like we dumped $2 million into finish up special effects that were never finished, like that could be neat. Like that also never seems to be come to fruition. Like it's always like clearly out of space and time when they do that. But kind of like like we've talked about before, is like, hey, where can you just watch the original Star Wars like without like the CGI Jabba the Hutt that Han walks over? It's like, well, that just is the version from now until forever.
Yeah. You got an old VHS tape from when it was on TV in the 80s. Watch that.
I'm pretty sure you can pirate it somewhere too. I have to go to archive.org and see if I'm pretty sure Disney would knock that down, but you never know. Yeah, I remember like the people are talking because there's the Oh yeah, yeah, Warner Brothers has a new crux now. Is like because they own, or they own Adult Swim, and so sometime in like the 2010s, like they were putting out like games on their website and um on like Apple and stuff like that. And just apps and games and stuff like that, based on either just standalone games by Adult Swim, just kind of like a vibe, or it would be based on one of their cartoons.
Is
So
that like
now,
one of like 30 Seconds to Kill Yourself, like those type of games?
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And I think it was like Robot Unicorn Attack. I think that was like one of them.
That
uh,
kind of vibe, yeah.
and and so now they're sunsetting those for tax cuts, and so you can never have them ever again. And so now they're trying to see if I don't know if build a bill is to get on it, to get the Congress on it or something like that. But basically make it like, okay, if these companies wanted to just throw these things away for tax credits, then these basically should immediately become um,
Public domain.
public domain. Because there's some of these video game creators, like they technically own their rights to their own stuff, but they can't just do anything with it because at some point it requires Warner Brothers permission.
Yeah.
Or not? Yeah, no. Who is it? Yeah, no. Who's bigger than is it Warner Brothers or somebody bigger than Warner Brothers? Who I just said who owned the company. Anyways,
Yeah.
um. So yeah, like these people that like own the rights to the intellectual property, but not what they can do with it. They're like, hey, can I just like get my game back and I'll keep it going? And they're like, no. um. And I can't even remember. Oh yeah, so yeah, that was so yeah. Maybe these old editions should become public domain, but then but it won't because that would create too many things. Look how long they held on to Mickey.
Yeah.
But Steamboat Willie Mickey.
They still have him, don't they? Didn't get it back?
No, you can do stuff with Steamboat Willie,
Oh, okay.
but it's very specific. You can't just because there's a distinct difference between Steamboat Willie Mickey and the modern Mickey, and
yeah,
even like
Willie is like the 100-year-old Mickey,
yeah.
right? Yeah, okay.
Which has a different design, different voice, and stuff like that, and kind of a whole different aesthetic. Or like the modern, like G-rated Mickey, which I guess Steamboat Willie's probably still G-rated, but like the haha, all shucks, guys, like that Mickey, you're gonna get sued out your ass if you try to use that. But if you use whistling, driving a boat, Steamboat Willie Mickey, you're good. And I guess you could even branch and move off of that. But then you're diving into some deep waters there. It's like, well, did your natural conclusion just arrive at Disney's ultimate conclusion, and now you're in breach of contract or whatever? Or I guess it wouldn't be contract, but
Wasn't it Winnie the Pooh also moved into that?
yes, yeah, it's in public domain technically. So I don't know, it's stuff like with the same stuff with Sherlock Holmes, where it's like there's stuff like the oldest stuff of it is public domain, but there's modern stuff, stuff that was created like in the 80s and 70s. That stuff's still under control of whatever that family is that wants all the money for doing nothing. So.
Yeah.
Which I understand. So that's a great gig to just be like, I live my life and money comes in. It's like, well, what happens when the money stops coming in?
We hire lawyers.
We still got lawyer money. We could throw that around. Oh yeah, the abyss. Yeah. So I think that I saw this on USA a bunch of times and saw it in pieces. Which might be the best way to see this movie, because this might be the first time I like sat down and watched this movie and took notice of everything. Because it's like this movie still has like a ton of neat stuff to it. Maybe not the best story in the world.
Yeah, a little. It's the same element, It's
but it's also interesting to kind of compare this to Hunt for Red October, which came out like a year later, which they're kind of doing similar special effects but in different ways.
yeah.
Because Hunt for Red October went for the old. I guess it's not old, but like they have a submarine flying around in a smoke-filled room, which they did some of that here, but then they went the extra mile of, hey, let's just put everything in a giant pool. And a giant pool made out of a unfinished nuclear reactor in North Carolina.
That's the Cherokee Nuclear Power Plant.
Which I'm sure there's like complete irony there about like a movie that's like technically about anti-nuclear weapons being using a decommit or an unfinished nuclear silo to be put to film its movie in. So,
And now they're going to build an actual nuclear power reactor there again.
oh yeah, yeah. Was that in North Carolina? I thought that was like in Georgia.
No, it's which
Or is there another one? Because I only remember that Georgia nuclear reactor where they spent like $8 billion and they still haven't like broke ground for it, but it's getting built eventually.
oh no, this is the one. Yeah, this is the one that Duke Energy opened.
Oh, okay.
And then because in 2000, oh, when did they make that possible? Because I know the last thing Bush did before he left office was you could apply for permits to actually build nuclear reactors again.
Yeah.
And they applied for it, and they've raised, yeah, it's like a $15 billion program to build a 2-unit reactor there. Of course, they haven't finished it yet because it takes forever to build those.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. They're actually going to build one on that site.
Oh, on that site that this movie was filmed in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
Because they already have the permit to put a nuclear reactor. They just abandoned the project.
Okay.
That's why they had these cool giant pools that you could fill with millions of tons of water or gallons of water.
Came out August 9th, 1989, so another summer movie. Of course, the director is James Cameron, coming off of Aliens to do this movie. This is kind of the only blemish really to his record. It was still successful in a lot of ways, but it was an incredibly might be the most expensive movie of the 80s.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it's not remembered well as being like a big hit, but I don't know. It's like people know stuff about this movie. It eventually got around. Had kind of a cool, ominous poster that looked like it should have like it should be like a monster movie, but it kind of has that alien vibe to it. Like
right.
But just abyss and the glowing light. Instead of a green glowing light, here it's a blue glowing light, which I guess makes sense. So. Cinematographer is Michael Solomon, who is like a Danish cinematographer who came over here. I don't recognize anything he did before this. He did this movie, and then the same year did Always, the Steven Spielberg ghost flying airplanes movie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or they're firefighters or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. John Goodman, Richard Dreyfuss as a ghost. I remember seeing that movie a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then also he did like Arachnophobia, a bunch of things you recognize. And then he just kind of quit being a cinematographer, and then he started doing a lot of TV directing. He directed one Hollywood movie called Hard Rain, which is kind of a fun, overachieving B movie heist movie with rain flooding a town. It's got like Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater in it.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Because Morgan Freeman's a bad guy in that, right?
Yeah. It was kind of eviscerated by the critics, but it seems to be liked by audiences. Kind of like, it seemed like, hey, what if Tremors was a heist movie? That kind of thing going for.
Who else? Didn't Randy Quaid play like the sheriff in there, and he turned out to be evil?
Yeah.
I'm not eating shit anymore after this. Everything I eat is shit free. It was like, that's great dialogue.
Oh, we'll probably get to that movie. I remember that being like, I remember it being a fun movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's very, very much like Speed was a hit, and so they tried to recreate things. It's like, hey, let's get hey, if a guy from the Netherlands can make a low budget action movie, what can a guy from Denmark do? It's like, apparently fail hard on his ass, but I remember it being a fun movie. So
great looking movie, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's what you'll get when you hire a cinematographer as your director.
Well, this he's known for wet movies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I guess so.
Oh yeah, because All Hard Rain is just fire hoses being sprayed into the air the whole movie. I think everyone's soaked in that movie, probably more than they are in this.
He directed a few episodes of The Expanse, so he's mostly a TV director now. But
Okay.
of course, this is written by James Cameron. So,
This is another one of his famous. Was this one based on a dream?
probably.
No, Terminator was based on a dream.
Yeah.
This was I forget what the story with this one was. I think this was because he watched National Geographic stuff with his then
Okay, yeah.
wife Gail Ann Hurd.
Well, there's also something weird because like you have the. Well, also there's like I heard some trivia that like he got idea from stuff in high school, which
That
like,
could-
well, that apparently the whole liquid breathing thing was like a presentation he got in Canada in high school.
Okay.
I'm like, wait, that goes back that far? Because this is like, oh wow, that's a cool concept in this movie, and like never seen it go forward. Didn't know it went back that far. For me, the whole liquid breathing thing begins and ends with the abyss. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you never know with James Cameron where he has to be careful about what he says his influences are because he went through litigation for that. So it's like,
Yeah, I had a dream about that. It's like not according to Harlan Ellison.
I did a quick flip through the tech noir art book I have. I didn't see anything on the Abyss. It's mostly a lot of stuff before Terminator. So,
Oh, okay.
of course, the cast is Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. I feel like she's cool in this movie, and she never really got a leading role ever again. But maybe she didn't want one after this movie.
A lot of people wonder about her career because she seemed to. Because I remember she was like, what was her big thing before this? I know she was in Scarface,
Yeah,
but I think she was Tom Cruise's girlfriend in The Color of Money.
yeah.
And then I think she was in the Robin Hood movie we talked about last week.
Yeah, there's weird connections because like Kevin Reynolds directed Robin Hood, which he directed the Beast movie, which he did last week. And then so yeah, she's in Robin Hood as Maid Marian. And then also like the guy in the Beast who's like the main Afghani guy, he was in Scarface, which she was also in. It's a lot of weird.
Okay.
Anyways.
And then her last like big movie here was The Perfect Storm.
Yeah.
And that was like it's 24 years ago now. But she also married some guy from either from Ireland or the UK and lived over there and raised her children over there.
Okay.
And she's American. So she might have like just decided, well, it's a time to, have a family or whatever and raise my children. Yeah, she was like, she did seem to like kind of fall off the map.
And of course, Michael Biehn, who worked with James Cameron and pretty much the only person that still worked with James Cameron after this movie.
No, I don't think he did anything with James Cameron after this movie either.
No, he did. I mean, he was in the cut dream sequence in Terminator 2. And
oh, was he? Okay.
And maybe he didn't do anything else after that. But I mean, he still talked to him, I guess, maybe. Maybe that was the most he did. So.
That could be.
Because
until recently he had a stroke.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Almost killed him.
Huh.
Because I saw him, he was being interviewed, and I was like, "Ooh, Michael Baine's not sounding good." And then he got to talking about the stroke he had. I'm like, "Well, that explains why Michael Baine's not sounding good. It's terrible."
But yeah, like pretty much all the trivia on this movie is how basically everything went wrong. Basically, almost everyone almost died at all points in the production of this.
Well, that whole thing when you're underwater and then the power goes out is like, that's nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're trying to get the power back on. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in a vat. I have no vision at all. Zero.
Yeah, because they had this thing in a big tank, but not a big enough tank where it'll keep light out. So they put a giant tarp and a bunch of like a billion black balls on top of the water. to
Yeah.
keep the light out, so it looked more like it's deeper in the ocean. And so if something goes wrong, now you have to like swim up through a tarp and a bunch of balls. So, which I guess the tarp rip, and then they decided like, well, it's time for night filming. So,
Yeah, this was a almost 3.5 month, 6 day a week, 70 hour a week shoot. It was insane. It was like really. No, that wasn't all the actors on set at the whole, because everyone said like this movie, like a lot of people didn't want to work with James Cameron because he seemed hard to work with. It's like, well, yeah, he's a perfectionist and he's not sleeping. Like, that's not because he's underwater with everyone else.
Yeah,
like,
he almost died too.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't think he was probably in his best frame of mind.
I forget, somebody tried to put like his oxygen tank wasn't, the refill wasn't correct, so he just went down with an empty tank or something like that. He tried raising up, and like the like safety diver like tried to give him like a rebreather, but he put it upside down, so he's basically just dumping water into his mouth.
Oh God.
And so he punched the guy in the face and swam to the top to break free, and so like otherwise he would have just died. And the same thing happened to like Ed Harris, where they put the thing in upside down and just dumped water in. And so yeah, then those people were fired after that happened.
Yeah, that's a fireable offense. It's your one job.
And like, yeah, it must have been a challenge. I don't know. This must have been set a challenge for James Cameron, because he didn't like, hey, no water shit ever again. No, he's like, hey, what if half of everything I ever do is just water shit?
And what if in my spare time I build submersibles deep into the core of the ocean just for fun? You know, it's like, this water's really gotten into my brain. And then when like those guys die trying to go down to the Titanic, who's on TV all the time? James Cameron telling you why this is why it was a bad idea in very specific and accurate detail. It's like, wow, okay.
Not bad for a college dropout. Or did he drop out of high school even? Yeah,
No, he dropped out of college. Well, he wanted to study physics.
Yeah.
Then he studied English, and then he took LSD and drove trucks around the country. Because it seemed like he grew up in Canada and then came to California with his dad.
Okay.
His dad was an electrical engineer, and they just moved to California. And he's like, "Yeah, I want to make movies." And his famous advice is like, "Do you think you want to make movies? Well, get a camera and start shooting stuff." It's like, that's crazy when someone like that says that.
Yeah.
Like, huh? Okay, cool.
I mean, it is that simple, but it's also way more complicated.
Yeah,
so.
it's like, well, also be a genius, have talents. Be the most successful film director in human history in terms of dollars.
Especially bang for your buck, because he doesn't have the release schedule that like Spielberg has, but like, when every movie makes $1 billion,
Yeah, he can do that once every 8-year movie. Just money in the bank.
Yeah, and then they knew like Avatar movies even crazier, because it's like, well, it's all CG, so we don't need to put people underwater. He's like, oh no, we're going to put people underwater, and we're not going to give them any scuba tanks.
Yeah.
The only reprieve is we're not burying them under a tarp of darkness. We just need them in water to film them for reference. So.
Yeah, they can see the air from where they are. I mean, we're going to deny them said air, but they can see it.
Oh, and then they had them. They did like expert classes where like with like, I don't know, like like Navy SEAL expert divers and stuff like that. And there's a whole technique to it, but they got down where like, yeah, everybody could be underwater for 8 minutes. And then I think Kate Winslet was down there for like 9 minutes one time and broke some movie record for longest single breath hold for a scene.
Oh, well, I learned that trick in a book.
Yeah.
And practiced it myself. I mean, after years of smoking and being a fat ass, I probably more, but I used to freak people the hell out. It's like, I could go underwater for, I could, most I could do was 5, because I did get that panic mode.
Yeah.
And you could probably psychologically overcome that, but I wasn't interested in doing that. I learned how to do, you just saturate your blood with oxygen. And then you almost hyperventilate, and then you just go underwater. And because most people could do like a minute or something. So, oh no, you could. One of the lifeguards like almost came in after me in the pool. And this was in, I think it was where we lived at before. And I was like, don't do that again. Or you're banned from the pool for life. And it's like, no, it's a trick I learned. It's like, well, we don't care. That's not because other people are going to try to do that. It's like, well, I can tell them how to do it. I read it about it in a book. It's like, no, this is not cool. Nathan, this isn't cool. It's like, all right, everyone calm down.
Well, I remember like one of the rumors, this seems true, but I have no idea what it is, but they don't list like the qualification for Navy SEALs because they know people will try to do things and kill themselves.
Oh yeah, that's because the Guinness won't take how long you can be underwater records anymore. So many people are just dying. Like, okay, and they won't do the saturation diving records anymore.
Okay,
but there is a whole cult of people that still do that and keep records, and it's totally insane. that deep crush, hold your breath, going down deep diving, that's nuts. I respect the people that do it. I could sort of understand the Zen state they're getting into, but it's like, that's still too much.
Yeah.
I have a thing about water and enclosed spaces. That's why I've always been fascinated with submarines, but you'll never get me on one. Well, first of all, I wouldn't fit at this point, but I, it's like, things like that kind of freak me out. I respect people that can do that go underwater and weld and stuff. It's like, hats off to you.
Yeah,
these guys make $300,000 a year. It's like, they deserve every penny of it too. I have no question about that.
Which that's what these guys are in this movie.
Yeah. I respect them.
Which is weirdly, I guess I didn't realize like these were just. I guess I don't remember like what I remember of this movie, but I like seeing that they're just like oil drillers. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that Armageddon was just kind of taking that from this rather than it just being stupid.
Yeah, it was that too, but yeah.
Yeah, because the oil drillers, they're the private companies that have all the technology. So. What else? So any preamble before we start the movie? I guess not. Yeah, this is mostly. But I don't know. Have you seen the other editions of this movie or like the extra?
I have not. No.
Okay. All right.
And because they weren't generally available, if I could pick it up in a store, I would have. But that's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So.
I think I might have saw it like when it was on a DVD. And we would have probably done this movie earlier, but it has been mysteriously been out of print on DVD and Blu-ray for like 2 years, and then this new edition came out, and suddenly everything has been available now. So now it's streaming in a bunch of places, and it's available for DVD, although apparently not out yet. So we have Act 1. We got an American nuclear submarine drives into visibility. Which is the Montana, an Ohio-class submarine.
Okay.
They're tracking a submarine, but they have no idea what it is. It's not Soviet. Oh, man, I had some trivia here. I can't remember what it is. There's, like, the guy who's the sonar guy. I was like, man, that guy looks a hell of a lot like Michael B. Jordan. I wonder if that's, like, Michael B. Jordan's dad, but it's not. It's another. I think his name's Michael Beach.
Oh, okay.
And he's been in like almost 200 things. I don't know if you'd recognize him, but I guess he did a lot of TV after this. He was like in a lot of stuff. And I guess there was a show which I never watched, but apparently had like 10 seasons or whatever called The Third Watch. It was some police procedural thing.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
And so he was in like 100 episodes of that show. So yeah, he got his money. So. There's also a bunch of other guys here you'd recognize from stuff. There's like the craggly kind of like XO, I think. I can't remember what he's from, but he's very kind of like southern, vaguely southern guy with just a cracked face and a weird like temper of voice that's like really craggly.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. Depending on how you dress him up, he's like he could be like the executive officer on a submarine or an alcoholic, depending on what kind of clothes you put him in. Yeah.
So yeah, they're tracking this bogey or whatever you call it underwater, sonar signal, and they're like trying to chase it, and then it's like chasing them, and it's like doing 130 knots, where it's like, yeah, nothing goes that fast.
Yeah.
Then we cut to like the outside. A glowing orb flies by the sub. The power goes out on the sub for a moment. They regain power just in time to run into a cavern wall, which I guess they were kind of showing some busy work of them constantly changing course. So I guess that's why they kind of end up in this path of like kind of hastily changing directions. Because you have to remember, like, driving a submarine is incredibly difficult because it's like driving a car with no windows and
Yeah.
like and just being like, well, how fast and far did we go?
Got to do some math real quick.
um, I don't know. Do you think do you think this is pure accident that they run into the wall, or do you think the orb was trying to do this because it knows of nuclear weapons or whatever?
Well, no, I think it was going so fast. First of all, it's going that fast through water. It's going to create a massive shock wave.
Yeah.
That's what the Russians are trying when they talk about supercavitating weapons.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to create. It's basically something that travels like a missile through the water. Because because the water doesn't compress, so it's just going to crush anything in its path. And I think, yeah, between that and whatever it's using for energy, causing their systems to go offline just briefly, but long enough that they couldn't recover from whatever they were doing. So yeah, no, I don't know if it was done on purpose, because the whatever intelligence they encounter later seemed benevolent but totally non-human.
Yeah.
So how they relate to us is like, I don't know. So it could have just been curious.
Yeah.
And not known that would happen, because it seems like they're almost simplistic yet powerful at the same time.
Well, these are the ones that look they're not the organisms, but it's it's more machine like. It looks like a weird sub unto itself, which these things I believe are not like intelligent themselves. They're just a machine out gathering
it's like
information.
A probe or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought there was maybe an alien inside it or something.
It could be. But it's like translucent. But like I think this is one that she sees when she's like out like doing stuff after the crane falls.
Yeah.
So I think it's a similar one where it's a tube, so it almost looks like a submarine, but also just looks like a light or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting. Translucent aliens, I guess.
So yeah, everyone. I haven't watched 1989's this yet.
The sub starts flooding and catching fire because that's what happens in a submarine, because like everything bad happens on the submarine. And actually you wish for an implosion because your death will be so quick you won't be able to actually analyze that it's happening.
Yeah. Like drowning or something. Yeah.
Suffocating, drowning, catching fire. It's all fun things that happen to a submarine. Smoke inhalation, I mean there's a lot of cool shots of doors getting busted open with like water. That's like really, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that thing just shoots out. Like it just one moment's there, one moment it's gone. And they're like, yeah, this really...
there's a guy that gets hit with one briefly. Like I think it was in the torpedo room, like one of the doors of the torpedo just flies off and crushes the guy. I mean, it doesn't show it, but that guy's like pulp.
Because when we watched Gray Lady Down, it seemed like every kind of encounter, it looked like you could just, if you just put it out a little extra elbow grease in it, you could just hold off the seawater if you wanted to. Where it's here, it's like, you're not stopping that. Physics is against you.
I've seen those submarine movies where they just have blocks of wood all over the ship and sledgehammers. They just wedge the wood and they just pound it in place with a sledgehammer, like they have it wedged up against the side of the door. I think that was Das Boot. They were doing stuff like that. They weren't even that deep, but it was deep enough. But
they try blowing the ballast, but they're still diving. I want to see the ballast work one time in a movie. It never works.
Blow the tanks.
It
only worked in Hunt for Red October when the Dallas.
Oh yeah, they
jumped into a what do they call those? The spoilers that fool the submarines.
Oh, the decoys.
Countermeasure. It just like intercepted the torpedo and drew it off, and then blew its tanks and leaped out of the water. So.
Make that submarine fly.
Which has got to be good for the superstructure.
I mean, it's a great marketing tool. Look how cool our subs are. They can fly.
That's how much this costs.
Pretty soon we're gonna be what what's that ship I gave you, the spaceship submarine.
Oh, no, that's the spaceship battleship, the Yamato.
Yeah, yeah. What was the name of the show? Was it Star Blazers or something?
Star Blazers.
Okay. Um, the captain orders the buoy launch, knowing that they're going to lose the sub, and then the sub floods and sinks into the deep. Which I think they're down about like 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is when you're considering 2,000 feet of ocean on top of you. So
It's a lot of water weight.
I guess some perspective is that was it the Titanic's 15,000 feet underwater. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I was looking up because I was trying to get comparisons to that. So I was looking up the Titan sub and like, well, how far is the Titanic down there? I was like, oh, it's 15,000 feet. So
That's really far down there. That's why homemade submersibles don't do well. Leave that to the professional.
Well, I was more confused by they have a bunch of things with like moon pools in here, and I'm like, at that depth, would that work? And I guess I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of that stuff where it's like, you say so, cool. I'm not a scientist.
I'm not gonna tell James Cameron he's wrong.
They had that stuff on like the Glomar Explorer and all
Yeah.
that. Like, so it's like,
Yeah, but that was above
real.
water.
Yeah. Well, it was above water, but it was like, it was a giant rig
Yeah.
that was pulled, dredging stuff up. It's like, how's that being you think they're just gonna pull it down into the water? Like, you got a big hole. It's like, oh, how does this work? See, my mind's not working in the right way because I'm thinking, well, it's just gonna pull itself down into the water. But
well, I looked up a YouTube video on moon pools, and this lady described it where she just had a cup, and then she like puts it in the water, and it's like, you see, the air inside the cup is keeping the water out, and then she like tilts it a little this way, and then some of the bubbles come out, and some water comes in, and then she takes a straw and blows bubbles back into the cup, and so the inside the cup, the water line lowers down because there's more air in there. It's like, okay, I got
okay, that's actually makes sense. All right.
I mean, that's a bowl. That's not 2,000 feet of water. So like, that's the thing I don't get. It's like, can you do this at this
I still want to know about like the Navy SEAL modified submarines where they just have what they call SEAL pods. Like, what's going on with that submarine? Just shooting guys out of the tubes?
Yeah, it is. Just putting guys in a torpedo and firing them out.
You can float out of those, I guess.
Yeah,
theoretically. Yeah. I've read books where theoretically the guy could do this. It's like, that's insane. Yeah, there's this big nuclear powered chopping blade going on about 400 meters behind that. Yeah, I don't think so. Good luck, guys. Glad someone can do it.
And then we cut to a shot of the buoy on top of the ocean, and it's flashing. Then we cut to choppers fly and land on the Benthic Explorer, which is kind of like the Glomar Explorer, which is a giant boat it's got a little square thing in the middle where it drops the rig at, or I guess, or helps control the rig. This is a cool looking boat.
Oh yeah,
it's a giant model, I guess. So like, I guess enough they had to register it with the Coast Guard because it was so big.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know. That's one of those military, or that's one of those trivia things. So I'm not sure if it's true or if just people want to like make something that sounds true.
Yeah.
I think, but I believe because I looked up like benthic. That's weird. I guess it just means like the bottom of the ocean. So that makes sense. It's exploring the bottom of the ocean. It's like
it makes like two ship hulls side by side. Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's a civilian deep dive vessel. We have Bendix here, played by Chris Elliott. So if you
that was interesting. I totally forgot that the guy from the David Letterman was like in
the... yes, Cabin Boy himself was in this movie. Very young Chris Elliott. I get why it probably wasn't that young, but in early Chris Elliott, I obviously know
63 now, so he would have been in his mid-30s then.
Okay, well, yeah, I mostly know Chris Elliott from the '90s. This is in the '80s, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he welcomes them into land. The military has showed up, and they want to use this. I wrote civilian, but it's it's an oil company's stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, they want to use their stuff because there's a hurricane that's coming in, and also there's vague mentions of, I'm not sure if it's here, it might be later, but the Soviets are also rushing to, they want to look at this Ohio class submarine because apparently everybody knows it crashed. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I almost forgot. Like, oh yeah, the Soviets were still a going thing when this. I mean, they were not long, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's what you just had to do back then. It's like, I mean, even in the '90s, like the late '90s, you still had Soviet bad guys as the plots. But and by then it was like, oh, like the Soviet Union fell apart, but they still have all this really badass weaponry that somebody might get a hold of. So we still got to worry about that. So.
Oh yeah, what's that called? Retro Sovietism. That's because those other one of those games. So the Call of Duty games that like started doing that, the adventures in the Soviet Union times.
Yeah.
Where they like the Soviets had just like insane technology.
Yeah.
And there's like, they're gonna, if we don't wipe this out, they're gonna kill us, and it's like, kill us all. And it's like, yeah, I bet you they wish they could have. They were that good. They talked a good game, but
then we cut to the underwater rig, and we have the crew doing some underwater welding, which, like Nathan mentioned, like these are very dangerous things, and people get paid lots of money to do this. Which I guess it's just a lot. It's not necessarily the welding that's dangerous. It's just everything else that can crush and kill you, and stop things, and rip pipelines, and cut your oxygen. It's just it's dark down there, and you got to know how to move around. So
yeah, it's like it's anything can go wrong. Because first of all, you're using pressurized superheated gas around a suit that has to remain intact, or you're gonna just die. And yeah, it's just a lot of dangerous things going on at once, and you can't see very well.
yeah. And so yeah, I don't know if I don't know if a vessel like this exists in real life. Here it's mentioned as an experimental thing, but it's basically just, it's like an underwater platform that can be towed around by a submersible. So it's basically just a floating oil platform that they can move around underwater. So
I mean, probably possible. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if this is just James Cameron's imagination or if this comes out of something. So
yeah.
And then we also cut back to the ship, and Lindsay Bergman shows up. This is Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, which she looks like an angry businesswoman, which I didn't realize. I don't remember her in this getup at all, or what she's doing here. I just thought she was on the rig the whole time in my memory of this movie. So I didn't remember this part, because basically, like, she built this rig that they're using, but of course the oil company paid for it, so now she has like nothing to do with it anymore. Which I don't know why she's here necessarily. Like, she heard of this and like eventually, and then like, and she's floated in on the military helicopters, so like she really inserted herself in the middle of all this. So unless they like needed her expertise to like make sure to get there as quick as possible, which that could be the thing. But she's mostly mad and doesn't want the military to use this. So
yeah.
And so they need to talk to Bud to explain everything. Bud's is Ed Harris. He's like running the crew. I wrote there. The guy comes in. I think there's a catfish. He comes in and says like, "There's a hippie on the bitch box," which I get that wrong. There's a character named Hippie, and then it's just the CB radio. It's the bitch box. Although here they have so this whole rig it's an underwater rig that gets towed by submersible, but it's also umbilical to the surface ship, which I'm guessing that's getting all their communication and power, but they can also have their own power reserves down there. Or what is the umbilical doing?
I think it provides, I think it's mainly communication, and
Okay.
It might be power, because I think they run on like batteries down there.
Yeah.
So it might be providing like a steady trickle of charge into the batteries until it has to be disconnected.
Okay.
I think the umbilical also tows them in a way, or it's
Yeah.
part of the system that can tow them.
Yeah. Yeah, because it eventually gets accidentally used against them. So
yeah.
So yeah, then we cut to like the crew are all like gathered together and they're given a backstory of like a Ohio class submarine going down. Their rig can go deep and like they can get there in the fastest time because like they say the SEALs have something that can go down that deep, but to get it there would take like 2 days or whatever. So this is just the closest thing. Ironically, the most advanced thing is the closest thing, so which is always the greatest setup for a movie.
Yeah.
We have Lieutenant Coffee. This is played by Michael Bain. He's one of the team of Navy SEALs. Um, was he also? He was also in just the movie Navy SEALs, right?
You know what? That's a good question.
And he was like the Navy SEAL in The Rock, like when they all get gunned down in the shower room.
Yeah, I know he did that. Yes, he was in the Navy SEALs, the
Okay.
1990 movie.
I've never seen that. That's just always been a. I must only remember that from like Clerks because it
Now,
always
wasn't that a Clerks thing? Like, there's certain people that only rent that movie.
yeah they're like ooh Navy SEALs. Which I don't know. Everything I know about that movie seems like I'd like it, but I've still just never deigned to rent it. So we'll have to put that in the list somewhere.
I've never seen that. Yeah.
It's like Charlie Sheen, Michael Bean, a bunch of other people. I think probably Emilio Estevez is probably in there somewhere. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'm just thinking of Men at Work.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
They moved the underwater oil rig closer to where they need to be to get the submarine. Hurricane Frederick is moving in, and so it's making everything complicated because eventually they're going to have to like their mothership is going to have to go away and they're just going to be by themselves. Lindsay takes the Navy SEALs down to the rig in a submersible, so this shows that like she has many skills. She built this thing, but also she's a diver, she's a submersible. She's just this is just James Cameron imagining himself in the future. Eventually, I'll have all these skills as well. Bud is perturbed that Lindsay is coming down. Actually, everyone thinks she's a bitch. That's kind of like an interesting thing to put on her is that nobody wants her down here, but like they need her down here, but nobody wants to admit that. The SEALs and Lindsay have to spend 8 hours in decompression, or is this compression? Like, what do they need to do on this end? Do they also need to decompress on? Do you decompress on both ends, or do you compress on this end?
I'm not sure how that works.
Because I know when you go to the surface, you have to decompress. I don't know what you have to do when you go down.
I know there's something to it, but I forget. Because I remember there was a horrible oil rig disaster where the guys were in a room decompressing after welding.
Yeah.
They would go into they would do something to their blood chemistry to go down, and then when they came back up, they had to go to a room and decompress their blood. They basically didn't get the bends.
Yeah.
And but the door didn't seal right, and so basically like 3 of these guys got sucked through a hole like this big, and one of them it was something awful, and it happened with an oil rig. But yeah, I know there's a recompression and decompression. I'm not sure what it does something to your blood chemistry.
Yeah, because I think
prevents nitrogen something.
Yeah, because I think like the nitrogen, like I get some with the nitrogen, which I don't know if it's like on a subatomic level or gas level. It keeps it from expanding or something like that.
Yeah.
And like blocking off stuff in your blood vessels or something like that.
I'll just pull in your joints and cause agony. And it'll give you a heart attack too. But I don't know all the. I've already said I'm afraid of that stuff. So I've never done it, but it's interesting to learn about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have more reasons to be afraid of it. It's like, I'm
This
learning.
is even worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Through a coffee can if the room doesn't work right, or someone didn't close something, or something didn't seal. And so I know there's a 2-step process, and it takes a long time. So.
Here's where they talk about like looking for signs of HPNS, which is hyper something something. It's the bins. That's what I always know it as, the bins. Um, and then so we like they mentioned like shaky hands, like paranoia and stuff like that, and then as they're leaving, we cut to we just have a time cut, and we just cut to like it's time later, and then we have Coffee going to grab a suitcase, and we see a shaky hand, so it's like, oh well, he's. I like one thing I like about this movie a lot is they present a problem and then have the problem immediately surface.
Yeah.
So.
Like, who's this going to happen to? Okay, so HPNS, high pressure neurological syndrome, is a neurological and physiological, diving disorder which can result when the diver descends below 500 feet using breathing gas containing helium. The effects experienced and the severity of those effects depend on rate of descent and depth of descent and of the depth and of the percentage of helium. They were also called helium tremors. It's usually, it has something to do with the helium dissolves in your bloodstream and what it does to your blood chemistry.
Huh.
But you can get the shakes and stuff, and you can start to feel like people feel when they don't sleep for like a week at a time.
Huh.
Start having really rangy thoughts and stuff, like because it's doing something to your body. It was discovered in the 60s.
Huh. Yeah,
by the Royal Navy.
Some diving bell stuff going on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember like what is it, the gap cycle? They have their version of the space bins where if it's like 1 in 6 people will just go crazy if they go to
zone sickness, or no, what's it called? Yeah, zone. Is it zone sickness? No, they use zone implants to gap sickness.
Yeah.
Gap sickness. Yeah, everyone will seem normal and they'll jump through the gap, and then like, oh, the guy will immediately like start to open the airlocks on the ship for no reason. And so they have to put zone implants that can turn them off like a switch, but clever evil people can use zone implants to make you into like, fuck puppets and stuff. Like, oh wow, this is terrible.
Bud and Lindsay meet. They have tension. Everyone isn't really happy about her on board micromanaging everything. She's like going up to everything like, this is wrong. Then we find out they're married. Are they separated or what's going on?
Strange is how it was described.
Okay.
This was interesting because James Cameron was at this time getting divorced while the movie was being made.
Okay.
From Gail Ann Hurd, the producer of this movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, there's a divorce going on in the movie and in real life.
Yeah. And that happened several times with him. So, who's he currently married to? Did he marry a normal person, or is it like another producer, or director, or actor?
She was married to someone called Susie Amos.
Okay.
From Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She is an actress, a model, an author, a plant-based diet activist, and an environmental activist.
Okay.
She was married to Sam Robards before she was married to him.
Who's that?
He's an actor.
Oh, okay.
From I know him from. What was his big movie?
Yeah, I was like, that's either like a character actor or some random billionaire.
No, he's a character actor.
Okay.
You'd know him if you saw him.
Okay.
But yeah, so she's like actually age appropriate for him too.
Oh,
so
okay, that's good.
She's not like, 30 or something. No, she's 62 and he's 69. So, because usually those guys have got some 25-year-old wife, and it's like, yeah, it must be love.
Yeah,
but it's love of something, that's for sure.
Oh man, the thing with like Leonardo DiCaprio, where basically he like stops dating women after they turn like 28 or something like that.
Yeah, they had a scale on the wall, like you must be under 25 to ride Leo. It was like a amusement park ride. It's like, yeah,
which that's the most fun for him. But actually, the worst thing is like Jerry the King Lawler. Like, I guess people are so desperate in the South. Like, he also just dates women at
18-year-olds.
yeah, pretty much.
Well, that must be fun for them. It's the best night of their life, I'm sure.
Just like this 70-year-old man. It's like, oh, I remember him as wrestling because there's nothing else in the South, so I'll marry this man. It's like, okay, well, whatever.
You already beat up that weird comedian on Letterman. Put him in a neck brace, supposedly.
It's all work.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bud throws his wedding ring in the toilet, then he reaches in to get it back out when he thinks about it. So.
And it's like an airplane toilet, which is the worst kind of toilet ever.
Yeah, it's got the
You ever
blue
take
chemical
a leak
in
on
it.
an airplane. It's awful.
No, I basically have heard too many weird stories about airplane toilets and seen it in movies too often. They're like, I'm not going back there. I'm just going to make sure to go before we go. So
yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm just white knuckling this all the way through the landing.
the longest flight I've ever been on is 3 hours. So it's like I can hold it for 3 hours. I mean, look at this podcast. So yeah, they set down the rig because I guess they're close to the thing. We have one night where she's like the tow truck driver. She drives like the bigger submersible that like drags the rig around.
There's really cool shots of her driving that. That submersible looks cool.
Yeah. Is that flatbed? Is that the one that drags around? I think that's the tow one.
Yeah.
Because that one doesn't have an arm, or do they all have arms? I can't remember.
I thought they all had a certain amount of articulated arms.
Okay.
But I know that one was cool because it had the round spherical bubble, and you could basically see all of her.
Yeah.
And then she was talking in there in time, and you could hear her over the radio to other people. It was a really well composed scene, and that like, oh, this looks cool.
But she's got like a cowboy hat, and she's listening to country music, so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, she's a trucker, and this is her, that's her big rig, and this is the flat. That's why it's called flatbed. So, then we cut to there's a briefing going down about going down to the sub. The SEALs hand out radiation badges, which freaks out Hippie. And then here we get a SEAL shows off the oxygen fluid breathing system, and so he shoves Hippie's rat in a container of fluid and gives a live demonstration of it. Like, this is a real live rat and a real live breathing thing. So, which is.
And wasn't this real in the movie too?
Yes, this really they really did this.
Because you couldn't show this in the UK.
Yeah, this is a cut scene in the UK because they deemed it cruel, I guess, to be shown on film. But Cameron assures that the rat was okay, and they did this with like 6 different rats and all this stuff. I don't know if they've ever done this to humans. Again, I don't think this technology ever went forward because I never heard about it ever again. Do you know anything new about the liquid?
No, this was real stuff, and there were certain people that could do it.
Huh.
But it took you had to have the what they call it, the self-possession of a demon.
Yeah.
To not like think I am suffocating.
Yeah.
I'm just going to freak out. I'm going to fight this with everything in my body and go into cardiac arrest. Because it's like, so I guess this can work. There's a name of a guy who did it. And I did some research on it, but there wasn't a whole lot. It was kind of a blurb. It's like it worked. There was a few people that could do it, but if you did it consistently, you got massive lung infections all the time. So It was kind of like, well, this isn't going to work. Basically, you gave yourself pneumonia.
Okay.
Because your lung tissue, it was absorbing oxygen as it was supposed to. It was doing the blood exchange and all that, but it doesn't like to operate in all that slop.
Yeah.
And then when it goes from super wet to super dry, you get pneumonia. And so quit doing it.
Because like in the movie,
solve a lot of problems. Actually, if you could make this work, it's like, oh, we're right down there with the fish that have their own like flashlight coming out. Of the, it's like, look at that. Let me grab that thing.
But yeah, I mean, this is real stuff. But like in the movie, they didn't subject this to Ed Harris. He just had to hold his breath in a helmet full of water. That was dyed.
Almost did it.
Yeah. Yeah, he unintentionally did it. So, so that would be the end of Act 1. We got Act 2. The submersibles and the divers descend down the side of the cliff looking for the Montana, which is like this is where that flatbed. Just all the seals are just hanging off the side of the submersible, which looks kind of cool, and some of the oil divers too. Um, Lindsay finds a sub. The submersible like comes along the side and they like light up the hull. It's a really cool looking scene. They mentioned that there's limited radiation, but there's really nothing to worry about. They drop an ROV to go down and look around the subs. A remote operated vehicle, so it's just a little like remote submarine. This is the thing, because like they're in a submersible and there's like the little moon pool inside the submersible, and this is like, wait, they're 2,000 feet underwater. Like, would there be enough air pressure in there to keep the water out? And that's what I was like, would this work? That's the moon pool stuff was screwing with my head, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
Here's also where like they're all talking on the radio and they calculate how powerful all the nukes on board the submarine are, which they're like, oh, it's like 4,000 Hiroshimas or something like that. So, and the SEALs and company divers work their way through the ship. Coffee knocks on a door to check to see if there's like survivors, and so they have to force the door open and a body gets sucked out. Then we have they keep moving through, and Jammer gets freaked out by a guy who's dead and has like crabs like crawling out of his mouth and on his face. But this is one of James Cameron's brothers.
Oh, okay. Crab guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
This isn't his Marine brother. This is his other brother. So, because he has a brother who is a Marine who also serves as like a military advisor on a lot of James Cameron's movies and other movies as well. I think this is Michael, his other brother, who works as a stunt coordinator on a lot of movies and stuff.
Oh.
And just does stuff with Cameron. So, yeah, I guess he also almost died several times. I guess one time he like ate the crab or whatever because he was like, "Hey, I can't pretend to be dead anymore. I gotta bite down on this crab." Let's see here. So yeah, Jammer gets freaked out. Bud calms him down, but he leaves Jammer to stay where he is. Like, all right, you don't have to leave, but you just stay here. And he gives him a rope to like, hey, if you have any problems, just tug on it. Then we cut to Coffee. He unlocks a safe with some crypto codes in it, which, again, we don't. I think we mentioned this in probably War Games and also Crimson Tide, where it's like, we don't know how this stuff works, so it's anyone's guess.
Well, you can actually make up all you want.
Then we come back to Jammer. The radio and lights are going out, and he gets scared and he starts tugging on the rope, but the rope's like caught on something, and the rope just breaks, and he starts panicking. And then like strobing blue light kind of like enters the room, and then a bioluminescent beam reveals itself in his helmet, which this is more of an alien because it kind of looks like a stingray or whatever. So this is like a life form, not necessarily like one of the vehicles or whatever. Jammer gets scared. He tries to leave too quickly and just bangs his tank up against like the hatch and like screws it up. Which Jammer is a huge man, so that makes sense that he would just be able to just destroy it moving too fast. Which again, that's the thing with like what's makes this diving stuff dangerous. It's like you have all the stuff on you, but like you don't have a nervous system extending to it, so you don't know where it is and how it's going to hit things unless you have a really good sixth sense for that. So yeah, his oxygen mix gets screwed up. He's getting too much oxygen, so they lower his oxygen mix and evacuate him. We cut out to outside. Lindsay sees one of the alien ships moving through the area. She tries to get a picture of it, but like all the power goes out. We cut back to the ship. Jammer's in a coma, so he's just gonna sit there for about till the end of the second act or so.
Yeah, it's quite a while. Yeah.
Lindsay's developing the film, but she doesn't know what to call what she saw because, like we see this, like, oh, it's an alien, which I don't know ultimately what they are. Do you think, like, I think, I that's another weird trivia. I didn't know, like somehow Cameron got Orson Scott Card to do the novelization of this movie, and he added a lot of backstory into there.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
And so there's some backstory about like these are aliens, and they kind of like go to different planets looking for water to develop because water is their resource, and how they build things. Because there's another way that this could be just like a life form on Earth that has developed undersea, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's going on here. But I don't know what's your interpretation on that, or do you think they're aliens, or just they been here the whole time?
Oh, they're aliens.
Okay,
Because anything with tech like that, like we would, uh,
detect at some
yeah,
point.
at some point, because like, we've had like SOSUS arrays and we had buried those in the 70s, and still to this day they're incredibly valuable, and they detect everything. So yeah, these are now the water. If you were aliens and you could like super manipulate energy and water and stuff, it'd be the greatest place to hide
Yeah.
because it's like a forest that we could never penetrate. 'Cause we don't mess with the ocean a whole lot, and when we do, it's easier to go to space than it is to go to the ocean. So
I mean, this also around. I feel like the '80s and the '90s probably stopped around 9/11. But people were obsessed with the idea of Atlantis.
yeah, oh, they
So,
still are. It still comes back.
yeah.
They'll find like ruins underwater and be like, "Look, it's Atlantis." It's like, no, it was like a bunch of Roman pillars that fell off a ship that they were building something.
Yeah. But people like to imagine like it was like people out of time made a magical city that then they blew themselves up because that seems very exciting to like, oh, people flew too close to the sun like 2,000 years ago or whatever, but it's like, it didn't happen that way. So
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
it's just
fun
like
to
all the
think of
stuff with the pyramids and stuff. It's like humans couldn't build those. Like, well, yeah, they could. With
it.
a lot of slavery and misery.
Yeah.
Anything's possible when you just throw manpower at it.
Yeah. And
Um,
people didn't have like free time. Like
yeah,
they didn't have like things to distract them. Like you just had to find a purpose
yeah.
or a purpose was found for you, whatever.
But it's fun to imagine. It's like, no, they had to use anti-gravity technology to do that. It's like, no, no, they didn't. It's not. It's cool to think about.
Yeah.
It's like the movie Stargate. That's what it was. Like, no, no. And
Um
they're keeping this all a secret. I always love that
yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's like everything's a secret. It's like, no, they would, they, yeah. I mean, the only reason we're doing this right now is because we had the only reason me and you are doing this right now is because a UFO crashed at Roswell. That's where all this technology came from. We stole it
Yeah.
from the UFO. Um, but yeah, so they're not keeping it secret. They're giving it to us.
The SEALs get a video call. There's like a couple of Russian subs like on their way over. So they have to go to phase 2, which is blow up the sub. So they need to get a nuke off of one of the MIRVs. We cut to the crew are watching TV reports. It's like, man, this moved pretty fast. I don't know how much time has passed for a news crew to get out in the middle of the ocean and talk about a sub they shouldn't know is sunk.
Yeah, I was gonna say when our submarines actually get damaged, like we don't know about it until like we'll get some blurb in the news like later. Well, remember that one submarine crashed into like a underwater like mountain or something,
Yeah.
and it came home with the front missing. It's like they didn't go rescue it, or they just sealed off the hatches and like come home. And then they just sawed the front off of an older one and grafted it onto that. It's like good to go. It's like this is insane.
um But yeah, but you do see shots of like the media has a story about how the sub was sunk by like Soviet intervention. So it's like, well, the media is being completely manipulated here. So, um,
I mean, there's a reason it's called the silent service. I mean, no, if we lost one, like you'd find out because like when the guys didn't come home, their families would be like, "Hey, where's Dad or where's my
yeah.
husband?" But
Well, I've actually probably found out because there's people that like just track that stuff,
yeah,
like coming and going of. Because yeah, I mean, you can be a civilian and just be a doc and watch something leave. It's not necessarily illegal. It's going to be incredibly suspicious, but it's not illegal. So.
yeah. I mean, well, those people are interested. I mean, believe me, if I lived near the airport where like the B-2 bombers were, I'd just be taking pictures all day because it's like that's cool. And if you want to come to my house or look through my internet history and see that like, well, I'm just a fan of this kind of stuff. I'm not talking to the Russians. So that's the thing is like if you're suspicious of anyone nowadays, just find out who they are and go have the NSA look at their computer history. And it's like, oh, okay, they're just a harmless weirdo. Now, if I'm out there with homemade devices, like pointing it at the things as they're taking off, then yeah, there's going to be a couple guys show up and be like, hey, come with us, that's, or not. Maybe they don't care anymore.
We cut to one night is like runs up to tell the crew that the SEALs are taking a sub. They need the sub with its arm. Okay, this is flatbed, so yeah, it does have an arm because it need to disconnect the umbilical to the mothership because it's gonna be leaving Victory Gin.
Yep.
oh, we got that weird stuff. Oh, I didn't realize we had that. Did you do a thumbs up or something?
What happened?
Like a thumbs up popped up on the screen when you showed the gin.
Oh, did it really? No, I had nothing to do with that. That's weird.
Does this do this? Okay.
Let me do this again.
Does it do? Okay. I've heard of. Maybe I don't know. I've seen that in other stuff. I've seen people do like a thumbs down and then like a rain cloud will come in. I don't know why it just did that, but whatever.
That's really weird.
Listeners, something popped up on our video call that was not intended by us. It was just a thumbs up out of midair that only I
started
saw.
talking about the government spying on us.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
All of a sudden the government was like, thumbs up. Because they care. It's our third listener, the government.
See, the government does care.
Yeah, they're subsidizing our podcast. Check the listener support. What if this is like NSA $9? Great. They're fans. Like, you guys get so many things wrong. We thought it was disinformation. No, it's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, sign up for our new NSA tier on our Patreon. So yeah, they need to disconnect the ship because the benthic explorer is going to be getting hit by the hurricane. It's going to be dragging them around because it can. The SEALs remove a warhead, they remove a warhead from one of the MIRV missiles. They come back to an angry oil crew that's just like quickly swapping things around. It's like, yeah, we need this. We need to disconnect this right now. The SEALs have a nuke on board, but nobody knows it yet. We cut to the benthic explorers getting hit by the hurricane as One Night is like down there trying to unhook the umbilical cable, but it's at a steep angle, so she can't like get it undone. Then the umbilical starts to drag, or the rig starts getting dragged by the umbilical. And then we cut to the top, which is really good model work because, this all looks like it's just actually happening rather than model work. Yeah. Like the crane that controls the umbilical gets ripped off of the benthic explorer and is falling on its way down to the rig,
which is terrifying because the weight of that tether and the crane is like, that's gonna kill everyone like twice.
Oh yeah, they sound collision alarms and just the umbilical like wrapping up on top of the thing just sounds terrifying. It's like, well, that's not even the big surprise yet. So.
Yeah. That would weigh thousands of tons on its own, just by itself.
Yeah, she also mentioned here there's this does it, T2 does it, and actually the latest Avatar does it. And I'm not sure if this is exclusive, but there's kind of a color palette used in this movie that like I find is very interesting, where it's very blue, but then because it's on a ship, everything is painted gray. And then you have like these yellow emergency lights, which I guess is also in Aliens as well. Yes. And it's very cool looking, and nobody else kind of does this. Because like in the second half of the new Avatar movie, they have like human water ships that also have this look to it. And it's like just the modern version of this. And it's like, I always love this look, and like people don't rip it off enough. Maybe because it's expensive, I don't know, but it looks cool.
Yeah, what's that called? Graphite scale? I think there's a name for it.
Okay.
Because it has a very like sleek industrial look.
Yeah.
With two colors that are vaguely similar but really offset by, because it's like a lot of steel, a lot of cobalt, a lot of blue, and then there's like yellow emergency stuff.
Yeah.
Aliens did it great. It's time to open the hatch to outer space. It's like, we need an emergency light every inch and a half around this floor. I mean, just 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all going off. I think because Cameron drove semi trucks. He kind of has a sense of that world.
Yeah.
Like this is what machinery that is used to propel, handle, hold, and move massive weight. It would look like this in this environment. This wouldn't be an industrial environment. It'd be cleaner than that because your living atmosphere is also contained in this.
Yeah.
Same with spaceships. Same with this. So yeah, it's why it has that look. You wouldn't see this like on a loading dock where I work because it's not a self-contained environment where your air is up.
But yeah, it's just something I thought I'd mention because it's a really cool look. I like that. I think it just seems to be exclusive to Cameron movies. The umbilical starts hitting the rig. It's like it seems dangerous unto itself. They also have they just took this from Aliens. Also, you have the tension of the sonar pings as it comes down, where it's like it's getting closer.
Oh, it's like who's gonna die?
Yeah. And then we have like a great shot as everybody watches the crane land just outside the rig and not hit them, and they have this sigh of relief, but then they see it start to roll over the edge and they're like, oh no.
Someone get up there with a sledgehammer and beat on that umbilical cable.
So now they're starting to get pulled by the anchor or by the crane over the cliff. And then we have like the battery room floods and explodes because that's what happens in some submersible things. When water hits batteries, it creates an explosion.
Especially briny, salty water hitting bad. It does wonders for electronics.
One of the crew gets battered by a door. I'm not sure if they die here. We lose like 3 crew members here, but they don't ever mention them ever again, so they must not have been cool as everybody else.
They weren't the fun guys. They didn't have like distinct personality features like anger, bitchiness, and a good fight. They didn't seem to have that.
Coffee's fighting a fire in the moon pool room. They seal off the area except for one door gets knocked off its hinges by one of the submersibles just flying around. There's a little bit with Hippie here trying to save his pet rat. And then a sub falls in the moon pool, and I think it kills one of the seals. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Because we see a seal with a broken leg later on, but I didn't count how many seals came down here in the first place.
But there were 3.
Okay, there's 3 after this, so
yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. Well, there's 3 that yeah. How did that work?
Because after this,
there ends up being 1. The guy with a broken leg is the guy who explains to Ed Harris how the underwater breathing thing works.
Yeah, and then there's the other guy that's working with Bean who gets the MAC-10, and then there's Bean or Coffee. Yes. So there's 3 after this event. So I'm guessing they just down 1 here. So,
yeah, this movie happened for me in 2 viewings again. So.
Yeah, it's a long movie. So, some of the crew get trapped in a flooded room. Bud can't open the door, but here's where he mentions like cut the lines to the motor. And so basically everybody in that room dies, but now Bud has to escape the room he's in, and so he stops the door by sticking his hand in it, and only the wedding ring keeps it from crushing his hand, which is a good little bit here. So, which has a hell of a wedding ring.
That is a hell of a wedding
ring. And then Sonny and Kat come up, and here's where he says, "Cut the hoses so that we can open the door." And so they do that, and then they are able to open the door. They get to safety, but Philip and the other 2 people in that room, they died presumably. So because we don't ever see them again. They're trying to reach the surface on comms, but like no one can hear them because everything like the umbilical got disconnected, and so. As I think Nathan could attest, it's hard to send communication through water.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well. It's very dense material.
I mean, weirdly, you can send sound out through water, and it's easy to hear it, but communication, not so much.
You can send like noise, but digital signals and stuff, no. Easier to send it through space. Again, water's terrible.
And also the ship has left the area, so that like they're on their own. Bud checks on the seals. One of them has a broken leg. Oh yeah, here's where Coffee swears that him taking the sub was like, it wasn't me, man. I was under orders, and he's like, sure, you just killed half my crew. So yeah. um, Lindsay lays out how like they're either going to freeze or suffocate because they're going to. They don't have enough power to power the heaters to survive, and then after that they're going to lose the oxygen. And then after that, some more terrible things. So it's yeah, they're on a ticking time clock here. Um, she's going to extend things. So she's going to like one of the wrecked modules to like grab some, I think, oxygen tanks. I can't remember. I think I missed that. She's going to grab something. So she goes out on a walk she has the ROV with her, which is being controlled by Hippie. Um, what do you think Hippie's deal is? He's like the conspiracist, but also the tech guy. And I don't know why they call him Hippie because it's like the tech guy would usually not be a hippie.
I think he has this. Yeah, I think it's his weird belief system.
Yeah.
It's kind of his cadence. It's like, you know what they're doing, man. You know, he was kind of like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where that came from.
But this is like the fun conspiracist. This is like Mulder. Like, man, what if it was true conspiracist rather than this is true? Let's let's change everything.
Yeah. This guy wasn't like QAnon or anything. It was fun. It wasn't all dark and evil and stupid.
Yeah, it's more like an imagination conspiracy where it's like, well, if this is true, this might be true, rather than no, this is true, and it's the dumbest thought in the world.
Like, now you can string all this stuff together, and it's like fun to play this thought experiment.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, yeah, it's like withholding knowledge more than like they're doing evil things. It's more like, well, you know, they can actually do this, that. Not like, oh, they're drinking the blood of children to stay young forever. Yeah, it's like there's a line it crosses where it's like, well, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
It's dark. And it's weird. It's like all people that disagree with you politically are the only ones involved in this. It's like, I wonder why that is.
There's interference and like the power goes out. She's walking around, and then another translucent sub pops up in Lindsay's face. We get lights from below, like revealing a much bigger translucent ship. Lindsay walks to the edge and she tries to touch the ship, and it's kind of like a liquid ship or something. But this is their magic that they can do with water, or they can form water into shapes that do magical things. Magical technology. What's the sentence? Like, under the right circumstance, there's no distinguishment between science and magic.
Yeah, when science becomes sufficiently advanced, it is essentially magic. Because it can achieve the same things that only magic was conceivable of solving before.
Yeah.
But it also requires a proportional amount of energy and time and progress technologically to where it's like that actually defeats itself. But
well, I mean, just the magic, like, I mean, the magic part's about your lack of understanding. It's like something so technologically advanced that it might as well be a magic because I can't explain how it works. So. The ship, the alien ship heads down the cliff at a, like, exceptional speed. It's also like, I don't know, it's huge. It's like the size of a B-2 bomber or something like that.
Yeah.
Then the power comes back on. Lindsay tries to show off. We cut to the inside. Lindsay, here she got some pictures, but it's like with a manual camera. I mean, she did it last time too, but now it's better. Oh no, I guess the first time she never got. Oh, it's like only like a streak of light. But yeah, she gets something better this time.
Yeah,
and she tries to show off the pictures, but like. Here she's just like talking about NTI is a non-terrestrial intelligence, so basically an alien. Or I guess, or what's terrestrial? Is that just land, or is that like within Earth? Okay,
that's how I took it to mean. Yeah.
Well, I know like Terra means Earth, so I wasn't sure if like, well, I guess non-terrestrial, just not of Earth. Okay, never mind. I'm figuring it out as I go. Bud takes her off to the side to try to like quell her interest in the investigation of the aliens. It's like, look, no one's gonna buy this. Except also I like the little moment where she's like, "Hippie, don't be on my side," because he's like, "Hey, I'm with you, Lindsay. Yeah, let's follow this to the ultimate conclusion. What is it, man?" She's like, "Shut up, hippie. You're not helping." Lindsay thinks the aliens are friendly and assumes Coffee's going to think they're Russians, which she's correct, but we don't know if that's because of his standard paranoia or because of his new Ben paranoia. So we cut to the SEALs are arming the nuke while Hippie spies on them, like through the one of the what do you call those, portholes or whatever.
Yeah.
He has the ROV out, like kind of spying in on him. So he sees a nuke, he records it, and he shows it to Bud. Lindsay's kind of standing over her head. They don't know she's there. She overhears it, and she just immediately goes to the Navy SEALs and confronts them. So, one of the SEAL grabs Lindsay. Yeah, she just like grabs a tarp and unveils the warhead, and then one of the SEAL grabs Lindsay, and then Bud calls an emergency. So like everybody shows up, and then they just kind of like, well, it's like, oh, Coffee thinking ahead here. I guess he's not totally like paranoid. He's like, yeah, let her go. It's like it's just going to become more problems. But then we can see Coffee succumbing more to the bends, which I think even like the people mention, it's like, oh man, he's blasted or whatever. I can't remember what they say. It's like, did you see his hands, man? Then we cut to, it's kind of like a moment later. Lindsay's hatching a plan with Hippie to try to get a picture of the alien. So they just want to like get the ROV to get near it and like start taking pictures because they know it's going to lose power. But I'm guessing this mechanical camera will like, as it loses power, like start taking pictures or something. But then we cut to like Coffee's watching them on the security camera because everything has a camera inside here, and so that he gets more paranoid. Then we cut to a POV of one of the aliens coming to the moon pool, and this is the start of the like famous water tentacle sequence.
Yeah.
This was built in the movie so that if it didn't work, they could just completely cut it out. It was also one of the first special effects that they came up with, so they could spend the whole movie trying to get this to work. This is also like one of the earliest inceptions of Adobe Premiere or just Adobe in general. Adobe Photoshop, I should say.
Oh, okay.
Where you just like digitally manipulate a picture. And so yeah, they took forever to work on it, so that's why it looks so good. But yeah, this is a pretty amazing sequence. I mean, it still works today because it's so simple, but so yeah, like it's just like this weird water tentacle. You know, it's not succumbing to gravity. It's being held in some weird, so it's it's unreal, and it starts moving through the ship, and it happens upon the sleeping crew of the like the workers, not the Navy guys. They're off somewhere else. So they wake up to the tentacle moving around. I like the bit where like Catfish like kind of wakes up and he's like, I want to go back to sleep, and then somewhere in the corner of the eye he sees the tentacle and he like shoots up and grabs like a cactus to try to hit him with it, or just some kind of house plant or something. Lindsay starts talking to the thing, and then like it mimics her face in the water, which is pretty much just what became of they used the same technology for Terminator 2, so it's a good base for that. And then its face changes to Bud, and then she like pokes it with her finger and tastes it, which that's weird. She's like, seawater. So there's like, so yeah, this is where we basically figured out. It's like, oh, there's nothing exceptional about this water. It's just seawater. So they're doing something. They're doing some magic with it. It moves out of the room, and then like they chase after it. They like go up a floor to chase after it, but you don't. I don't know. This is weird here because I don't know like how they know where it is, because it's like they've moved up a floor. I'm not sure if they can see through the floor down below, or if she's just guessing. But yeah, it leads them to the nuke, and then the SEALs see it like from the moon pool area, and so Coffee closes the door on it, and it kind of like, and like the door closes, and then like everything forward of it, like it just drops down, like gravity now exists in the water, and so like it breaks like the tension on whatever magic they're doing here, and then it kind of like looks at Coffee for a moment, and he like quivers in fear, which that's what you want out of your Navy SEALs. Yeah. Then the tentacle takes off. Then we cut to like the crew and the SEALs like discuss the situation. Coffee says nothing, and then we just like move to underneath the table, see him, he's just cutting lines into his arm. So it's like, okay, he's lost it.
He's a cutter now.
Which I wonder if this like that's his way to try to stay in line. Like this is, this is him trying to like administer like some sort of medical treatment to himself. Like I got to keep it together. I got the bins. I also yeah. So yeah, they get out of the meeting, but I like this where he's talking to like the other Navy SEAL guy. And he goes, like it went straight for the warhead, and they think it's cute. It's like this is a great line. Coffee grabs a gun, which is like a MAC-10 with some sort of like, it's not a silencer, it's just like an extension. I don't know what the hell this thing is.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that myself.
Because like it almost looks like a silencer, but it's just a bunch of holes cut in it, which I don't know like what that's doing for the what it's doing for it. Also feel like the Navy would have more advanced weaponry. Just bring down an MP5 or something.
Yeah, I can see my the place I go to that actually talks about like the movie props and guns. It's just a barrel extension. It's a MAC-10 45 with a barrel extension.
Huh. Okay.
So I don't know what that does, except just looks scary.
Yeah. Well, like when the one guy shoots it, he like grabs the end of the barrel. It's like that's the wrong way to do that.
Like, gotta get a glove on.
So yeah, Coffee's just openly crazy now, and he thinks he has to like kill the aliens with a nuke because like they can't warn the surface. So it's like, which you kind of forget that, where it's like, because they're all operating on a Soviet threat now, but now the movie's a completely different thing. Now the movie's basically Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, feels kind of like an afterthought in the movie. Because like, I mean, the aliens are there, but they're never like, they're just there. They're not necessarily engaging.
They don't
in the
seem
story.
to be like interacting a lot.
No.
And they don't seem to have a motivation.
Yeah, because that's the thing about
they're the motivation, but you don't really know why.
Yeah, I mean the thing with Close Encounters is like are these good are these good or bad? Because everything they've done since seems bad. They're stealing people. They're not expressing themselves. They have cool ships and they seem to be ruining people's lives. It's like, and then at the end, it's like, oh, they're friendly. It's like, oh, okay, that's a churn. Here, it's just like they're there. Bad things kind of happen around them that doesn't seem to be intentional. It's just kind of benevolent consequence of their technology, and then they become friends at the end. So, then we cut to Hippie is like sneaking around. He sees the SEALs that strap the nuke to the ROV. I think there's two ROVs. I think there's like Little Geek and Big Geek, and this is Big Geek. And then Coffee sneaks behind Hippie, and so then they take the crew. The SEALs take the crew hostage. Hippie had programmed the ROV to go to the aliens because this is what him and Lindsay were talking about, and so now they're gonna like. Well, he programmed the thing, so we're just gonna strap a nuke to it and like it go on the program and then blow up the nuke because it has a timer on it. The SEAL with the broken leg doesn't have faith in the situation, but he's got a broken leg, so he can't do anything about it. There's some commotion on the other side as they're trying to Coffee says if they touch the door, shoot them, and then like everyone's like touching the door at this moment, and then the door opens, and then Jammer has awakened, and he knocked out Shonik. That's the other bad. Well, I guess he ends up not being too bad, but he's still working with Coffee. He knocks that guy out. I think it's what's he say? He says I thought I was dead when I saw the floating angel in the water, and he's like, "Okay, Jammer, why don't you keep that to yourself?"
Yeah, that was kind of funny. Like, yeah, let's not talk about that.
Even though they've seen aliens and know what he's talking about, he just Bud to think that's too weird of a sentence to react to, so he's like, let's not talk about that. So they're trying to make their way to the sub bay of the moon, the moon pool room, but like Coffee like tied it off, so they can't get through that way. So we have Bud and Cat are going to swim through the freezing ocean water to get to the other to another hatch to open the way. So they swim over to the other hatch, but it won't open. So then Bud makes his way to the moon pool, but Cat says he can't make it, so he leaves him behind. I mean, he's not gonna die. He's got some air in that little hatch area, I guess. So I don't know how much, but it's a little bit. Bud gets to the moon pool. Here he has to like, thinking about it's like this is a hard situation. He swam a lot in freezing water, and he has to like clandestinely sneak up to get air and not like make a bunch of sounds because he's freezing to death. So,
Yeah, it's not a good time.
So then Bud's like sneaking around, and Coffee's in there. Coffee's like clicking the chain on the pulley. Like I don't know if he's like trying to center himself or he's just like a good way to act crazy and create a sound. Or Bud tries sneaking up on Coffee. He goes to like he has like a big like pipe or something, and he could just like hit him, but he decides like I should probably get the gun from him, and that's when Coffee sees him, and he kind of like pulls the gun on Bud and pulls the trigger, and we got a quick shot where the seal that they've like taken hostage and are tying up, like he pulls out the magazine and like reveals that he took the magazine out of Coffee's gun, which I'm guessing Coffee didn't have a round in the chamber. So.
We're hoping differently.
And then we have Bud and Coffee fight, which he's a Navy SEAL, so he's gonna have he has much more advantage here. It's also they're like fighting in like I don't know like ankle deep water, so it's a very like interesting combination of stuff going on here to have a fight in. So, this seems like a fight that would be in like a Metal Gear Solid game or something.
Yeah, it is a little different.
And then like Coffee gets the best of him. He's starting to choke Coffee with some of the just wires hanging around. And then Cat shows up and punches him with the hammer, which that's what he called his fist, where he said like they used to call this the hammer. So but it doesn't must not have been that well because it doesn't knock Coffee out. It just kind of knocks him away. So it's like he's a Navy SEAL, so maybe they had face punching training.
They did fly through the air pretty good.
Yeah. Coffee jumps in the submersible with a nuke and the ROV on it. Here's where like Hippie gets the MAC-10, fires it, and just bounces off the wall. And then here's where Cat grabs it, holds onto the barrel, and just like blasts away with it. Which apparently this was real bullets, so they could have it hit the water, and show it hitting the water. But I don't know if you've ever seen Mythbusters. Shooting bullets in the water is a useless task.
Yeah.
The only thing you're going to hurt is something directly on the surface. Like once you get like a foot underwater, like the water will stop like a Barrett 50. So,
yeah.
Yeah, water will stop bullets pretty well. So.
Oh yeah, well it doesn't compress, so.
Bud gets in a dive suit. Lindsay gets the other sub, and they go after Coffee. Bud like barely makes it to the ROV, and he hops onto it before he like gets out. He's like using like the scaffolding on the rig to like pull himself along as fast as he can to like catch up to the submersible. He gets on it, and he's trying to tie off the ROV so like it'll like be tied to the rig rather than being taken off by the submersible. But then Coffee notices Bud, and then he like turns the submersible to try to go after him. Lindsay shows up and like rams into the sub. They have a sub fight for a bit.
Yeah, I like the sub fight.
Bud it's like his sub gets like decommissioned for a moment here. It like loses power temporarily, and then Bud gets in Lindsay's sub. That they catch the ROV like as it kind of like he didn't get like a good knot on it, so it came loose, and so they're able to catch it with the with a grabby claw, which is like that's a good shot. Also, it's kind of weird that like all the claw stuff is like stop motion animation.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was like, this is an interesting choice.
I mean, I guess they did. I don't know the trivia. I don't know how much true this is. The trivia did mention that this is one of the first movies to use multiple effects companies to do their stuff.
Okay.
So like it wasn't just ILM doing everything. They had ILM. They had everybody working on this movie. So this must have been like a different effects company that like did stop motion stuff because it does seem different from all the effects in the movie. Because I'm like, couldn't they just get a real arm and do that for real?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. How hard is that? I don't know. So yeah, they have a chase. Now they have a chase and a fight with the two subs. They end up stalled on the ledge of the abyss. Yeah, the both subs lose power. Coffee's sub like falls down and it eventually implodes. Which this is a good like death scene for your bad guy. It's just like screaming no, and then just immediately implosion. But we do know this is a better death because his brain wouldn't comprehend any of the pain that would happen to him as he was eviscerated and turned into a slushy. So, then we cut to Lindsay sub. It's out of commission. It's taking on water. Bud shorts out the powers. Like they're trying to get comms back on. They're trying to come up with a solution, but they don't have a good one. Like they're trying to rip one of the consoles off the wall. I forget what to do for, but and then Bud's trying to like give his suit to her, but she's like no, we don't have time for that. And then she's like, new plan. I'm going to drown, and then you tow me to the rig. They share a kiss as like death seems assured. And then Lindsay starts freaking out as like the sub almost fills completely with water, and she is like getting the last bit of air. And then it's eventually just filled up with water, and she kind of like hugs Bud, and then her hands go limp, and it's like, okay, she's drowned. And then the whole time I'm like, why are we waiting for her to drown to get moving?
Yeah, we don't have to wait for her to die.
Bud gets in radio range, and so he's like telling them to prep everything to revive Lindsay. Bud gets back with the lifeless Lindsay. They start working on her. They fumble around with like everything, the defib. It's like in like they have shots, they have warmer stuff going on. And nothing's working. Bud does some more CPR. They stop Bud for a moment, but then like Bud just goes back to doing CPR. They do mouth to mouth. He adds out mouth to mouth here. They zap her again, then back to CPR, and then he just starts slapping her around, and then that brings her back to life for some reason. So, I mean, this is a very like heavy scene for especially the things going on here. And I guess also Cameron made them do the scene multiple times, to which Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio just like left the set. It's like, nah, I'm not doing this again. So that being in Act 2. So we have Act 3. Lindsay wakes up with Bud sitting over. I noticed like his toilet stain hand is still stained, which I don't notice again until this moment. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess you got to keep that around.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the SEALs are putting Bud in the liquid oxygen deep diving suit. They have to put contacts in his eyes so he can like focus through the liquid, which that's an interesting little quirk. It's like, oh yeah, I guess he'd have to do something like that. Bud won't be able to talk because his like throat will be filled with water. So I don't know. They got those. Yeah, because they got those throat mics. I wonder if that would still work. Like, could you make the vibrations work, or would it be all weird because it's filled with liquid oxygen?
Yeah, I'm not sure because it's filled with water how that would work.
I mean, they do make a point that you can't like move your larynx enough to like create audible anything or something like that. I don't know. They mention stuff why you can't do it here, so it's not like but I'm just trying to think beyond it. So yeah, he has like a little keyboard on his arm, so he'll be able to talk through typing. They fill the helmet up with liquid oxygen, which, like, in reality, they just filled the helmet with water, and he had to hold his breath. So. Bud has a panic attack as he's like breathing in the liquid, which they have a good line here. It's like, "You did this for 9 months. Your body will remember." Which is, as Nathan has found out, no. Through his research, not he didn't go through his own liquid oxygen diving program.
Yeah.
What's the logic with this stuff? You don't have to have compressed. You don't have to compress like the environment in your suit, and so you don't have to worry about compression anymore. You're just like,
yeah, you're
one with the water.
Yeah, there's nothing to compress now.
Okay.
There's no every part of your body is now filled with a liquid that there's no air trying to get out.
Okay.
So you can conceivably go incredibly deep, but like they said, logically too, there is still going to be massive amounts of pressure on your body.
Yeah.
Even though there's no air getting out, which will start, you're neurologically, you'll start to shut down.
Hippie programmed the other ROV to take Bud down to the nuke so they can disarm it. So then we have cut to Bud does his dive where he just kind of leaps off the edge and then kind of gets driven around by the ROV. Lindsay's talking to him to try to keep him calm. They mentioned that he breaks a diving record. And then we have Bud starts having some adverse effects from the dive, which is just, the weirdness and depth and all that stuff.
We get like seizures, right?
Yeah. The lights they have him like his typing starts to get erratic, which I like the Navy guys always like keep him calm. It's like he's losing it. He's seeing lights, man. He's crazy.
This is another thing that happens too if you've ever want to watch those people ascending Everest, where they have to recite simple things that are said over the radio so they can tell how much hypoxia is damaging their brains.
Yeah,
because it's like what's like just tongue twisters, but not even that. It's just like simple sentences or whatever.
Yeah,
my name is Mark. I'm at 42,000 feet. It's like, say that back to me. My 42,000 feet is Mark. Name is here. You start talking like HAL 9000 when he's shutting off the higher reasoning functions.
Yeah.
Just like days. It's pretty weird.
But we got some good like measures here of like how deep it is, because then like the lights in the ROV starts to break and then like the ROV just implodes and it's like, this doesn't seem good.
Little geek's done.
Which I like somehow like the rover is completely dead now, but somehow like he lands on the magical ledge, which isn't that big, that has the nuke on it. So but I guess it was going on the same path, so that also must have imploded and stopped at the same place. So, so it's using the same program, I guess. Bud lights a chemical flare. Bud gets over some of the physical problems, and here he lands next to the nuke. Monk, one of the Navy SEALs, he's talking him through disarming it, which it's funny because he's like... he tells him to cut one wire and not the other, and then under the chemical light, the wires look exactly the same. So it's
like a green light. You can tell red from blue under a green light.
Which I guess in reality, these were just two black and white wires.
Yeah.
But I got the idea.
Well, they did it that way so people couldn't see. Like, but I can tell it's blue. And
no,
you can't.
He can't, and you can't.
We'll just stop that argument before it happens.
So yeah, it's just a 50-50 chance. He starts to cut one, and then he goes to the other one, and he cuts it, and so yeah, they're all good. I like that they cut to the crew first, and you don't know if, like, well, did the nuke go off? And then you just get still here, and so then they start celebrating. But then I guess they look at, they spend the whole time trying to like keep Bud at good, like in good spirits of this whole thing. But then I guess now they check like, oh, how much dive time does he have left? And they're like, oh, he has 5 minutes of oxygen left. They're like, what? It took half an hour to get down there. So Lindsay wants him to come back immediately. It's like, the meter could be wrong. And it's like, nah, that's not so.
He basically says, I knew this was a one-way trip, right?
Yeah.
Which is very stoic. Or it's just like, my brain's fried. I don't feel like typing.
He says it's a one-way trip, but he had to come anyways. So, but Bud decides he's just going to wait there and die. And then an alien shows up, one of the translucent aliens. This is like a being, not like a spaceship. And then it holds out its hand. Bud grabs it, and it swims him to the spaceship submarine or whatever it is. I want to see these spaceships. I want to see these translucent water ships in space. What are they doing there? Yeah. Or do they just go inside of this bigger mothership, and then that keeps them safe from space? I don't know.
They bring the water up there and they make them into light huggers. So they freeze the water item for asteroid collision.
Bud is dropped in a room where the water is removed sideways, so it's like walls of water coming apart. It's Moses parting the seas.
Yeah,
which is a really cool. I know they basically did this in Stargate, which I guess is just better looking there, but it's like really cool here. I don't know. This sideways water stuff looks cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. If you actually saw that, like as presented, this has to be amazing.
And then like a council of aliens show up to talk. One of the water walls turns into a screen, and then they repeat like what he wrote to his wife. And so like in the special edition, there's longer stuff here because then they start showing I think they start showing him like pictures of war and stuff, and they want Bud to explain their humans' warlike nature and like, hey, can you guys be trusted? And I forget what he says, but he's like kind of like, no, but we're trying, and they're like, okay. There's also like what gets cut out of the theatrical version is they're like a giant like sea wave or whatever that's just like holding over the cities, like the aliens are going to destroy all of humanity because it can't trust it. So that gets cut out of the movie. There's a lot of political stuff gets cut out of the movie. Here, that's not mentioned. It's just like, hey, do
you guys have any oil? If you don't, you're cool. However, if you do, you might want to keep that to yourself.
They basically cut this down to be pretty much just like Close Encounters, where it's like, hey, they don't seem so bad, and then that's kind of the end of the movie. Yeah. So then there's a transition. The hurricane to the top side. The hurricane's clearing up. So apparently the aliens knocked it out, and maybe they created it to begin with. You don't know. The benthic explorer makes contact with the deep core. They're making plans to get them out before like their air and heat run out, which is like pretty soon.
Yeah.
Then they start getting a message from Bud, which the message is Virgil Brigman back on the air. Have some new friends down here, which everyone's in like disbelief, like what's going on, which he doesn't explain. So, the space submersible starts to come up from the abyss. And like it ends up picking up the deep core. You don't see it get picked up; it's just there. We cut to the benthic explorer, and then they see the ship rising on sonar, which it's everywhere. So it's like
giant sonar.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, where's it coming from? Like everywhere.
And then it picks up the benthic explorer. It picks up a couple of battleships. It just picks everything up, and just show the size of it. It's like, yeah, it's huge. Then the crew just hop out of the deep core. Like apparently they don't have to worry about decompression. So that's another thing. It's like, how'd they do that? It's like, magic water aliens. So, which that's what they leave it up to. So, they don't like get more into the aliens' politics of nuclear weapons. Then Bud and Lindsay reunite. They kiss and credits. That's the end of the abyss. It's up to you to decide. I don't know. This would be a really interesting world of like, hey, what happens now? but I don't think I ever explored that ever again. So.
No, they never revisited this world.
um, yeah, it's Abyss. So it's a really cool movie with lots of cool stuff in it, but not necessarily the best movie, especially story wise. Which I always grew up thinking this was always a cool movie, and it's still a cool movie, but I can definitely see why this movie would be boring and uninteresting to people. So
It's kind of a lot of cool. There's a lot of good acting in this movie,
yeah,
especially Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and Michael Bain for the time he's in it. There is some good acting here. There's a lot of great visual stuff constantly, all the time, and there's almost seemed to be a story overlaid on that, so we can do all this stuff, but that doesn't exactly smoothly mesh together. And I think a lot of that had to do with just the brutal shooting of this movie, and then kind of like, okay, what kind of story can we tell? And we got all these perfect scenes. Can we string these together in a narrative that's going to enthrall people? Can we get $1 billion out of this movie? Oh, we can't. It looks great. It's not. You're not drawing people in. This isn't Terminator. It's not Terminator 2. It's not Aliens. Made some interesting like acting character choices too, though, because Ed Harris's biggest thing before this was that I remember was The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
When he played, who did he play?
Oh, was he Shepard, or was it? He was the Marine, right? Yeah, he's. Which one was the Marine?
Gus Grissom. No, it wasn't Grissom. Hold on, let me look it up because I love that movie. That was another movie that was like considered kind of a bomb. But John Glenn.
Okay.
Yep, he was a Marine aviator.
Yep.
And so he was in The Right Stuff, which was kind of. He did some stuff. He was in Places in the Heart too. After that, but yeah, this was like his first like, I guess big
movie. Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, Ed Harris does interesting movies too.
Yeah.
He does some interesting stuff.
What didn't he direct and star in the Pollock movie?
Like Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
And he's known
still doing it. Still happy.
Still doing stuff. He's known to be a very serious person on the set. He's like getting his job done.
Yeah.
Some people say asshole. Some people are like, no, he's just like, he's a professional that you're paying to be there.
Yeah.
He's not interested. He's like, I don't want to be your friend. This is I'm doing work.
We need to get this done. Being your friend is only going to delay that. So.
I'm going to do this. He does not like to talk about this movie.
Nope.
Will not talk about it. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio will not talk about it. Michael Bain will not talk about it. There's a lot of people that just don't care to ever speak of it again. Interestingly, the guy from the David Letterman show, he was like, I thought it was fun, but he was up top.
Yeah, he wasn't doing water.
He wasn't doing the water stuff, but he did say that like I knew the water stuff looked nightmarish, and it was just as hard on the filming crew as it was the acting crew.
Yeah,
harder in some cases because they had to come set up and everything, and it was. So this was one of those like super demanding pictures that a lot of heart and effort and blood and toil went into it, and it didn't exactly pay off.
Yeah, because it was enormously expensive. So
yeah,
it says $70 million. I don't know if that was like inflated at all or adjusted for inflation or anything like that, but
it now the box office on this says 90 million, but that was US domestic box office, and for some reason I heard the tracking on this movie got really weird because they just stopped tracking it like I think it was in September or something.
Yeah. So movies had a longer tail back then because this movie, I think it opened at 9 million, and it's like, which nowadays it's like, it's dead in the water. That's this movie's going to make like $12 million if you leave it out for 10 weeks. So it's, but back then you could make $9 million every week. So like you might get your money back.
Yeah. So this has kind of a weird tracking arc on it, on its money. So
it's also Fox. And so, every studio's terrible with their accounting, but it seems like Fox has some especially weird holes in their records. So
Well, this because it came out in August, which is kind of like that's the tail end of the summer blockbuster release
yeah,
schedule.
you kind of release movies you're not sure about if they'll do well. Like this also, like we use the example as Elysium is an August movie. It's like, is it good or not? It's like, well, I don't know. I guess not. But I think John Wick's another one where it's like, we don't know, and then that became a hit. So
Yeah. So this was something, but again, this had a long. This seemed to dwell in theaters a long time.
yeah.
But they quit tracking the weeklies on it they went to like monthly reporting, and then after that they went to like a quarterly, and that's where the data trail ends. But
But you
but
know,
you gotta remember, all these studios have been bought and sold 1,000 times since then. They probably threw out the boxes of information.
I mean, he
So
got to go make Terminator 2, so it's like it must have not have hurt his career too much. So
no, I mean, the movie was wonderfully reviewed. It was seen as like really innovative, and critics like loved. It's like, oh, it's more intellectual than like Aliens. Like it had more heart to it, maybe, than that, or
yeah.
a little less cold blooded than Terminator. So they did like that.
And like I don't like again I like the aesthetic look of this movie, but also just it holds up. It doesn't look like a movie from the
No, this
80s.
is like a movie that was made 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
A lot better looking movie than what you think it would be.
And I know there's like a lot of stuff from '89 that kind of has that look, but like I don't know, it's '89 movies that I can remember off the top. I believe Batman was '89.
Okay, yes.
I believe Last Crusade was '89. Um, oh, weirdly, I forgot a thing about the Beast. Remember, I was talking about Rambo 3 and having kind of similar plot, but I thought it came out in the '90s. Came out the same year as the Beast. Rainbow 3 came out in '88. So
Oh,
I guess Afghanistan was on the mind there. So.
Well, you gotta remember, this inspired two movies that were like they were racing to make undersea movies, Leviathan and Deep Star Six. But those were undersea monster movies because they couldn't guess what James Cameron was doing.
Okay.
They just made a monster, and neither one of those movies were very.
Those are big. Those were big cable movies.
Yeah.
Was Peter Weller on Leviathan or Deep Star Six? I think it was Leviathan.
Peter Weller was in Leviathan. Yeah.
Okay. I think
Peter
that's the
Weller
better of the monster
Yes.
undersea ones. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting in its own way.
Deep Star Six has a great cover.
Yeah, it looks cool.
It's like the half-eaten suit.
Yeah, it looks like the suit from like the James Bond movie about the oh, someone has a suit like that in that movie, and I forget which one it is.
Is it License to Kill or something else?
No, it's one of the last. I'm just gonna look it up because it was one of the. It was before View to a Kill.
Okay. I remember License to Kill has some weird decompression deaths in it that are like, wow, that's incredibly violent, but that movie is rated R, so
Was it For Your Eyes Only? Yeah, I think it was For Your Eyes Only.
okay.
It was one of the last of the Roger Moore era movies. Yeah,
There's also Octopussy too, which that's got water in it. So
trying to see. Yep, this is the one with the ATAC.
okay.
It's the British nuclear coordinating computer, and yeah, they have a dive suit that looks just like that.
Huh.
Because James Bond and his beautiful sidekick are trying to retrieve the ATAC from this sunken British ship, and they're just in like diving gear, like flippers and things, but the guy shows up in this suit with like the claws, and it's all balls and
Okay.
a mirror, and he gets killed, of course.
Yeah.
But
I think there's something also similar in Inner Space.
yes, there is. Now that suit shows up a lot. I don't know what kind of suit that is. It's probably something that was designed for a very specific person or use, and people in movies were like, "Yeah, this is cool. We need to have this in everything we can because it looks like menacing and futuristic."
Should be a Machine and Krieger model.
It probably is. It actually does kind of look like one.
So this is the end of our 80s section, which I guess we have to evaluate. Well, we start with Airplane and we get to Abyss. so, so Nathan, what are your conclusions of the 80s section that we had here? Like, I mean, a lot of the time we're talking about what we liked about a lot of these 80s movies is how swift they were.
Yeah.
And then it ends with The Abyss, which is not swift at all, but it's still really cool. So, because it seems like egregious now. It seems like every movie now is like 2.5 hours, and it does not need to be. But
Yeah, it seems like we kind of entered into a new era of indulgent filmmaking towards the end of the 80s.
yeah,
Well, no, I mean back then I think it was kind of like it's a new thing. We can tell bigger stories. Now it's getting to the point it's what you'd call indulgent. It's like,
yeah,
well, this doesn't need to be 3 hours
yeah.
long.
Oppenheimer's 3 hours. It doesn't need to be. I mean, like I enjoyed all that was there, but like it was a long time.
Yeah.
And then like I definitely want to see the new Dune movie, but I'm balking at 3 hours of time in the theater. So
Yeah, I'm probably just not going to be able to do that. I'll watch it at home, even though you should watch that in theaters. I
yeah,
guess visually it's amazing.
yeah, because the Denis Villeneuve, like I feel like you got to go see his movies in theaters. So it's one of the only time I've ever seen a movie twice in theaters was Blade Runner 2049. So
Yeah.
saw it once in a regular theater and then went to IMAX to go see it. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to find 3 hours of my life to knock out now, and I can't.
I'm probably gonna go this weekend, but I'll probably enjoy it, but I'll probably be like, oh man, now it's 4 o'clock. It's like the day's gone. And I went to an early showing of the movie.
I got the early bird special. Now it's time for dinner.
Yeah. um. Yeah. What else can we say about it? But I think the 80s time there's a lot of canon stuff. I know there's stuff with canon like they cut their stuff short just so they could have more showings in a day. Like that's
Yeah.
the reason they cut their stuff short. And also they probably just literally didn't shoot enough film for half their movies. So
Yeah, there's always that too.
but there is something that just well also I guess there's a lot of movies this time were like less complicated and you just kind of like more of your characters were just stereotypes. So that just helps you along when a character can just like you know who the character is by the way they dress and the way they talk and you don't have to explain themselves. Whereas like I guess nowadays characters are more interesting in their complications and sometimes needlessly so. So
Yeah.
And also it just seems like, well, we put the money into it, so we got to put it on screen. But man, like half those I mean, every one of those Transformers movies is too long.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, now we're getting into indulgence.
It's like, why does this need 2.5 hours to tell the story? It's like, no, but we put $200 million in it. You're gonna get all of the $200 million. Because it feels like we're in an era where there's not going to be a director's cut anymore. It's like they're clearly going to the theaters as the director's cut. So
Yeah. There doesn't need to be like, I mean, I don't know. Well, the amount of money it costs to make these movies nowadays too. I don't imagine there's like an hour of extra unaired footage.
yeah,
It's like it's just too much. And they're getting everything in that they want to. I feel like.
Yeah, it feels like there's going to be a retraction here pretty soon. Because even though it seems like Dune's the biggest movie in the world and it's probably going to make a lot of money, it's like, well, Barbie made $1 billion on like a $20 million budget. So it's like, let's do more of that.
Oppenheimer made a lot of money too.
Yeah.
And I think Napoleon did also.
Yeah, but like Barbie was number one with some billions of dollars, and then Super Mario Brothers was like number two with billions of dollars. So
I never even watched that. Okay.
Oh yeah, all those like Despicable Me and Minion movies, all those things make billions of dollars.
Why is that? Because it's just something normal to do with your kids.
Yeah, well, and also everybody, there's no age restriction, so everybody can go see it. Um, I don't. There seems to be a drop off in Pixar. It doesn't seem like. It seems like because this is like the Sony Illumination studio that's doing all this stuff, and they become the new Pixar, and like I don't think they're better than Pixar, but like I guess their movies are fun and stupid, so they're just really easy to. They're just kind of disposable, and you'll enjoy your time, I guess. But I don't think
So
they're.
that's the problem is like Pixar grasped the sun at like
Yeah,
about the time of Toy Story 3, like they were almost biblical. It's like
yeah,
they can do no wrong.
yeah.
Literally each thing is not 5% better or slightly better. It is 50% better than the last. That's like impossible. And they kept doing it.
Yeah.
And then finally it's just like, well, we what can we do now? We can only split so many atoms. And then it kind of, I don't know. I mean, nothing's good forever. So
Um, yeah, we'll be starting our 90s segment. So, I don't know. What do you anticipate out of the 90s, Nate?
90s was an age of optimism and dawning darkness. Because the 90s, we never had an economy like we did, past about 93. It's like it was like, oh, sky's the limit again.
I did have a thought the other day, and I better get it out now before I forget it. Because there's a new Crow trailer, and I guess people are mad that there's a new Crow movie.
Okay. Why would they be?
Yeah, it's not. There's one good Crow movie, and actually, if you think about it, it's not that great of a movie, and there's even worse sequels. So it's like, but it was a cool aesthetic movie.
The Crow movie looked cool. It had a sad backstory and an amazing soundtrack.
That's the thing I was going to talk about. Is the 90s were the last era, and maybe the only era, where a soundtrack could sell your movie.
Yep.
That will probably never happen again.
What are 9 Inch Nails and Stone Temple Pilots doing? We got a hit. Whatever's going, hey, throw together a movie, whatever it is, and it's a hit. Take a simple comic book premise. We're going to have Trent Reznor just belting out lyrics.
He's doing a cover of what's the band like? Love Will Tear You Apart. What's
the Joy Division?
Yes, he's doing a Joy Division cover there.
That's cool.
Yeah, the 90s were an era where like the soundtrack could be like more popular and make more money than the movie. And that's you'll probably never see that again. So
it's the last golden era of music.
Yeah. But like I always say, there's good music now. It's not hanging around like that. Like
there's not a culture around it. I mean, there is, but it's like invisible.
Yeah.
Like I found out about a lot of cool music because I had to drive to Fort Wayne to a record store where the weirdest people in the world were. Because guess what? You couldn't go to Kmart and pick up the latest Ministry album. They weren't selling it there. So you had to drive to Fort Wayne where guys had facial tattoos and face piercings. They were really cool. And you could talk for 5 hours about, music. I learned a lot about like the older Tom Waits albums from those guys. I mean, I literally walked out there with $400 worth of CDs at one time. But you had to go seek it out, and there was a culture. Now it's just like go to your, Webtoons, whatever, and just start listening to music.
And so yeah, next week I believe it'll be Memphis Belle because we started our 70s section with an airplane movie. We started our 80s section with an airplane movie. And we're going to start our 90s section with an airplane movie. There's a lot of movies I could have choose from. I went with a joke. So, and then that joke ends in 2000 because there wasn't a good airplane movie then. And that whole decade's going to have a problem with airplanes anyway. So
yeah, that's kind of like the era that the airplane ended. When planes weren't fun. When passenger aircraft became weapons of war in an odd, eccentric war that like never ended, but did. Well, what ended was like $10 trillion of American money. That ended.
That went somewhere. Somebody got it.
Yeah, somebody. There's a lot of big houses. You did well, but
Well, let's see where it's down on the notes. Wait. Yeah, we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of the scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven
Did
Effect.
we rate the movie yet? Star Wars?
That's next.
Okay, sorry.
Getting a weird after one where it's like added the let's evaluate the 80s and now the 90s and that's we're getting out of sync here. Anyways, what scene for this movie are we chucking into space?
We're throwing Ed Harris down the abyss. We're
Okay.
throwing him down the ravine. He's texting, which was not but it explains the whole movie. It's a long, slow descent into darkness and death that's pulled out at the last minute by hope and strangeness. And aliens that seem perched on the edge of something, and I don't know, it's like, hey, do you have like limitless energy down here? Because if you want humans to be good, let's live in this post-scarcity society you've created. Because the reason we're down here in this cube drilling holes in this rock is because we need this crap to burn. You guys seem to have something that we could all use, so let's not be sanctimonious about it. Guess what? If everyone's needs are met, they're not going to keep killing each other. They're gonna keep happy. So instead of judging humanity, why don't you help us out?
Also, as far as I know, those sets are still in that abandoned nuclear reactor.
They were destroyed in 2007.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw some photos and I saw something that there's a sign left there by 20th Century Fox saying they own the property to it, but I guess okay. Was that destroyed to make way for the new thing or just because? Okay.
Yeah. Well, that it was kind of an insurance hazard because those were drained and you just like a 70-foot drop into the. Let's climb around on the sets. Ah! All of a sudden, somebody's family like won a lottery.
You can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE, 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving The Abyss?
I'm going to give this movie 3 stars for still looking good after so many. And for Ed Harris.
Yeah, I guess how old is this movie? So it's 30. Oh, wait. So wait. No. 34 years old?
Yeah, 34 years old.
Or 35. It's 24, so yeah.
Yeah. So 35?
Yeah. 35 years old.
Year old movie. Yeah. Almost as old as me.
You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us at a monthly stipend, either 99 cents, 49 or $9.99. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice, but remember the algorithm only listens to the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.